Hey guys, Lytane here, and there's a lot of things that I ponder about in my life, like is cereal a soup or a salad? Now most people think that these kinds of questions are really stupid and idiotic and that they shouldn't be asked anyway, but these are the things that I think about, and I just stop random people on the street and ask them all the time. Or at least I would if I lived in a very specific town. This town just has a bunch of random people that like to ask questions and, you know, get people to solve their riddles for them. So, today on Is It Worth It, I'm going to be having a look at Professor Layton and the Curious Village, the very first game in the Professor Layton series, to see if it's worth it. Professor Layton and the Curious Village was released in 2007 in Japan and 2008 in America and the rest of the world. Developed by Level 5, it tells the simple yet complex story about Professor Layton and his trip to the Curious Village with his assistant Luke. Professor Layton is very similar to a Sherlock Holmes in that he is very, very smart, he has great deductive reasoning, and he solves mysteries in order to help other people. He doesn't have all the negative things that Sherlock Holmes does, like all the drugs and all that kind of stuff, so that's good, it's for children, yay! Now the game centers around Professor Layton and his apprentice, Luke, as they investigate a village called St Mystere about an artifact called the Golden Apple, which is an heirloom that was left to the town, and there was a test there in order to determine who would receive this gift. Residents of this town are really strange as they enjoy brain teasers and puzzles and riddles, and they constantly ask Professor Layton and Luke to solve them in order for them to either get past a certain point of the game or just as a bit of fun if you're just talking to random people. A lot of these puzzles don't actually fit the narrative of the story, it's just brain teasers and stuff to get the gameplay along, but a lot of them do result in a little bit of storytelling, like find the town on a map or how to get past a doorway which is blocking your path by figuring out how the lock works. As Layton and Luke go through this town, they are hit with a plethora of mysteries, from a random cog that they found to people going missing. Also, there's a mysterious lady going through the town. There's so many things to solve, and if I talk about them really any more than what I have, it's spoiling the narrative of the game. Rest assured, as you play through this game, all the characters in the story does get more in depth. I just don't want to ruin it here, so that's the end of my story section. Now, Professor Layton is a game in which you go through solving puzzles. As such, there's no real fighting mechanics or anything like that. There's a little bit of exploration as you press on the different map tiles, and you can press on the different things on the screen in order to talk to people, find hidden objects, and find hidden puzzles, but that's about it. So every part of this game is just exploration and then puzzle solving. But the puzzles here are what make this game really, really unique and fun. There are just a bunch of different puzzles. Some of them were made up for this game, some of them are popular puzzles or riddles that exist in the real world, so if you already knew them, then you could have solved them very easily. And some of them, again, are just variations of puzzles that are in the real world. And they are all so much fun to play. They all aren't intuitive either. Some of them requiring you to use your brain and figure out a pattern. Some of them requiring you to just do exactly what the puzzle says to you, which I don't really want to ruin them. The puzzles are all really varied as well. Some of them require you just to follow a pattern of things, like going, oh, okay, this is linked to this, and then that's to that, and then therefore that is that. Oh, okay, so the answer must be this. Sometimes it's wrong. It's really entertaining to see your thought process and then get an answer and then it being right, and you feel so rewarded. Or you get it wrong and then you're like, but where did I screw up? I'm sure that this is the right path. The game offers quite a few different types of puzzles as well, some of them requiring you to just input a number, sometimes drawing a shape, other times touching things in certain orders, and that leads to a lot of the gameplay, and I find them all really fun because there's just so many of them and they're just fairly memorable. There's some of these puzzles that will definitely stick with you as you play. One of the puzzles that I absolutely love is the fire puzzle. The premise goes like this. You are in a house and all the power is out and everything, and you have to light a few things in order to survive. So you can either light a lantern for light, you can light the fireplace for warmth, and you also have to heat up some bath water to keep yourself clean. But you only have one match. Which of these things do you light first? Now, I'm not going to give you the answer here because it's just too good, and everyone has their own reasoning for which object they pick, and there is an answer though, and like I said, I'm not going to reveal it here, but I felt really smart when I read this question, and I read through it quite a few times, and I was like, I get it. I get this, and I got the answer right first go, and I felt really, really smart. And then I love giving that riddle to other people because it just goes and it really questions their thought process too, and I think that's really, really fun. And this is just one of many puzzles that are just so much fun. There are a few puzzles that aren't very good though, some of them requiring too much thinking or too much math and just requiring you to keep track of a lot of different things, especially later on in the game where some of the hardest puzzles present themselves. This does keep the progression of the game pretty well done, as you do feel like you're getting smarter and smarter as you're getting the harder puzzles, and it's a little bit rewarding if you do solve them by yourself, but I found that most of the later puzzles are really, really difficult, especially the hidden puzzles right near the end of the game that require so much thought process or so much luck in order to get them solved if you want to do it without hints. But that's a good thing there because there are hints in this game. As you're playing through, you collect hint coins by pressing different objects that are unique or interesting on each map. So you get a coin if you touch like a post or a bunny rabbit or something that you see on the screen, which I think is really cool. So that way they reward exploration and they reward just you tapping everything in sight. The hint system, there's 3 levels of hints. There's the basic hint, which it just gives you a clue as to how to start your thinking process. There's a medium level hint, a level 2 hint, which gives you a good idea of what to do after you've started your process. And then there's level 3 hint, which gives you a lot of information and gets you like, 80 to 90% of the way to solving the puzzle, or at least it will give you the bombshell clue to giving you the right idea of how to think about this. Some of the hints aren't even very good or useful, like just press one of the 3 people that you have on the screen. You're bound to be right one of the times. And that could be a little bit annoying, and it does cost hint coins, and you can't choose which hint you just get the first level and the second and the third. So it's not the worst hint system ever, but it's good that it is in this game, or else some of these puzzles I wouldn't be able to solve. But something that is good is there's usually a little bit of a story or something involved with the puzzle that you're doing, and then after you've solved it, it does give you the right answer and the reasoning behind it. So if you did get one of those hints where it's just like press one of 3 and you just figure it out, and then you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, you click the red person, and then it gives you an explanation of why you had to pick the red person, and then you go, oh, okay, now I understand. Which is good because then you feel rewarded because you're like, now I understand the puzzle. But some of them you probably still go, yeah, I don't get it, but I've finished it, so whatever. But what really shines in this game is the overall story, because it is one big mystery. It has a few twists and turns that you probably won't see coming, and I absolutely love it. Out of all of the Professor Layton games, I think there's like 6 or 7 now, this is my favorite story of them all, because I didn't see where it was coming. I guessed some of the things that were going to happen, or at least I figured out, I guess, if you call it like that, the plots in 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I had a rough idea and I had a good guess, and it proved to be fairly right. And I think that might be because the first game they put maybe more effort into the story. They just had the grand idea and they just put so much more time and energy into making it all work out. So the first game's story just feels so much grander and so much more connected to the actual game. One thing that I do really like is the fact that there's a reason why most of these people are giving you riddles. This town of St Mystere is built up around riddles, and it's built up around all these different puzzles. The reason for that is because the Baron that died, he left puzzles behind in order for people to solve it to get his treasure, to get the golden apple. So the people here are all obsessed with puzzles, and as such, they give them to you because they get stuck on them and then you have to solve them. and if you don't solve them, then they just get put into your little archive for you to try again later, which is cool, unless it's of course a story progression one in which you have to solve it. These puzzles make a bit of sense. Like, so the person is talking to you and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm counting my apples, but I think one is missing, can you help me? And then later on it might be a kid is running down a street and he's like, I lost my friend, I can't figure out which house he lives in, can you help me? And those kinds of puzzles are integrated into the story and integrated into what you were doing a lot more than the sequels ever did. And I think that just makes this world and this village feel more alive. The main story as well, like I said, is interconnected to these puzzles, and I didn't see it coming. I guessed one of the major arcs, and that was about it. Everything else I didn't know, and it was really fun, and it was really interesting to see the entire story play out, but I don't want to give any of it away because it is best experienced for yourself. Because this is a puzzle game, one of the problems that a lot of people run into is that if they don't feel smart enough or they don't know how to solve things, then they either spend all their coins on hints and then they get frustrated because they can't solve it and then they stop playing, and that is a problem here. This is a game that is made for people that want to be challenged, that want to try to put their brain to the test. And so there are definitely people out there that are going to look at this game and go, oh, I don't want to solve a riddle, I don't want to do that kind of stuff, and that's fine. I would really urge a lot of people to give this game a chance regardless. If you do get stuck, then there are walkthroughs online which give you the answer, and the answers will be the same every single time, so at least you can get the main story, or maybe you can watch just all the cutscenes or something like that, and, you know, just try it that way. One major thing about this game is the art style. Oh, it is beautiful. It has this really simple design and elegance to everybody, but everyone has such character to them. Professor Layton is all really straight-lined and he's all fairly, you know, blocky, to be honest, and that just means that he's a straight-up kind of guy. As you meet some other people in the town, you can tell their personality just because of the way that they are drawn. And I really, really love all of the backdrops and every place that you visit as you're going through this journey. It is simply gorgeous, and I cannot praise the art style and the animation enough. And speaking of animation, most of the cutscenes in this game are little cartoons, they're little animations, where you get to see Professor Layton and Luke running around doing things, and you get to see Professor Layton actually being like an Indiana Jones kind of character. He's really fit and he's really acrobatic. He can do a lot of cool things. And watching him think on the fly to solving some of the puzzles that are presented to him in the cutscenes is really funny, because you can see like, oh, I'm grabbing this, I'm grabbing that, and you're like, what is he doing? And then he makes a parasol or something like that, and you're like, oh, okay. So his mind, like, because he solves all these riddles, is actually really smart. And they're all very entertaining. One problem that some people have, especially my girlfriend, is Luke's voice. It's a little high-pitched squeal, and so that can be a little grating at times, but I honestly don't mind. The last thing I want to talk about is the musical style to this game. It has a very French kind of feel to it, if I'm being honest, and it's really fun, it's really unique, and it's really ponderous. As you're listening to a lot of these tunes, especially the thinking music that they present when you're trying to solve a puzzle, you can't help but get in the mood. It isn't something that slaps you in the face or is trying to give you high energy like in other games. It's just something to relax to. It's a kind of music that you can sit and you can listen to for an hour as you're trying to solve this puzzle, and it doesn't get in your face, and it doesn't get grating, and it doesn't get annoying. And if you don't like the music, then you don't have to listen to it. Just turn off the music and put on like a TV show in the background, or listen to your like iPod or something like that. It doesn't matter. But I really enjoy the music, and there's a couple tracks here that I always remember and always get stuck in my head. So I give props to the musical department, and it also fits with the style of animation, if that makes any sense as well. It just all looks and feels and sounds like it's one big happy family. Professor Layton is a very easy worth it. Like, come on, everything about this entire review has been praised, as if you couldn't tell it was worth it. The fun thing about this game is the fact that as you're playing through it, everything comes together. Like, the story is very well thought out, all the characters are well thought out, the puzzles are really well thought out. There aren't too many bad puzzles, but there are a few, and there are a few that will trip you up. The gameplay itself is very simple, and a lot of people can get their hands on it because it's nothing like a fighting game where you have to memorize moves or anything like that. But it's a puzzle game which might be inaccessible to some people because they don't like that kind of genre, and that's fine. But I urge everybody to try this game because it is so much fun, and it's so good that it's spewed like so many sequels, because it is the basis for a lot of games to come. And I particularly liked this game because as I was playing through it, it would hit upon a chord in gaming that I never really experienced before this. Most games before this were either platformers or shooting games, and you did have things that were puzzle platformers where you were trying to solve puzzles by jumping around or doing certain things, but this is a pure puzzle game. There's no like survival puzzles or anything like that. It's just straight up riddle, solve it, get to the next location, and it was just so unique, and it was just so much fun that I've played every game in the series now, and it does get maybe a little tiresome by the time you reach the end, but the first game is still the best, in my opinion, of the entire series, so check it out. But tell me what you thought about Professor Layton. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was a piece of crap and that the sequels are so much better? Or did you really, really like this one? And try and avoid spoilers of the main story if you can down below, but try and answer the riddle from earlier if you can. If you've played the game, then you probably already know the answer, but I'm just curious to see if people do know the answer to this and their reasoning behind it as well. Like, you can't just say one item and then not give you a reason. You have to give your reason, and then I'll see if you're right, and then I'll tell you the right answer. But don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Bye!